Hey guys, well, to answer your question in the video title, there's nothing wrong with Team Spirit. There's just nothing really wrong with them. But there are some things we can look at, and you'll get to decide for yourself. We can start with just looking at the results, although there's of course situational things that happened. But in general, the results they had last year, specifically, they got first at Esports World Cup, beating Falcons. They did not get that far in TI, but they lost to eventual champions. After that, they played Falcons again, lost in Fisher Playground, lost Blast Slam, but then again, it's 5th, 6th place, so it's not like they're going downhill. Kind of recovered, got 2nd place at Wallachia, close finals, if you just judge by the score. Again, close finals, well, close, I guess. Anyway, they got to the finals again. 1 month later at Dream League Season 27. And then they had some roster changes. I believe all of this up until the end of 2025, they still had Silent as their coach. They also have stand-in Muriel for Fisher Universe Episode 8. They get 2nd place, and then Blast Slam 6, they get 7th place. So in general, they had pretty good results. Then they kind of lose their coach, have a different mid who they played with already before, so it's not like a completely new person to them. But even further, if you make the argument that they got 7th to 10th place at Blast Slam 6, sure, but then again, they're quite close in score to teams in the 1st, 2nd place. In fact, if you look at this, really only Reconyx stand out as the team that kind of, it was difficult for them to play this group stage. Everybody else is kind of closely matched. And if you look at the results that Team Spirit had, well, they lost to Mouse, they lost to Heroic, the two teams that are at the bottom of the bracket. They lost to Falcons, they lost to Liquid, kind of middle of the group. Lost to Yandex, and they lost to Extreme. Okay. Who did they beat? They beat Tundra, they beat OG, Navi, Reconyx, and Jill. So Team Spirit kind of ended up beating the top of the bracket and teams from the lower bracket. All you can kind of infer from this is they can definitely beat. I mean, if you consider OG to be like top team right now, or Navi to be top team right now based on this group stage, well, they beat them. So are they really struggling if they beat the best teams? Of course, they went on to play Team Yandex and lose there, and we'll look at that and what happened there. But more importantly, the thing you can notice here is the dichotomy of the pro scene. And in some sense, I think it's really very important to understand for both teams and just people who are thinking about Dota, is that you have two sides of this. You have more sides, but the two general sides that you can kind of look at when it comes to Dota as phenomenon or something public. So there is first off, there is show business side, showbiz, and then there is the actual kind of sports side, meaning the competition. So sports is competition and show business is the show, what it looks like. And these two things are quite different in how they look at what's happening. So from show business, and this is very important for teams to understand, this is very important for individuals to understand, is that the scale on which you're measured is completely different on these two metrics. I mean, or let's put this, the scales are different. So, okay, so the more normal scale that you kind of, if you were trying to judge which team is better, you would go to the sports scale. And the sports scale is something, like Knoxville does, calculations, what teams, like kind of team MMR or whatever, they're like Leica scores or whatever. So there's like a score or a scale, and it starts from 0, and then you have teams like, this is like top 10 teams, has like a score of, let's say, 1200, and then like top 5 teams has a score of 1400, and then top team has like a score of 1800 or something like that. Numbers are completely irrelevant. In fact, if you look at it, it can be even closer, where like this is 0, this is like 1800, and this is gonna be 1600, and this is like top 10 team, and like top 5 team is already gonna be like, so you can see that this gap is quite significant. I mean, significant in the sense, like this gap from 0 to 1800, like to the best team, is quite significant, but this gap between like the top 5 team and top 1 team is not that significant. This is the sports scale, where you really try to judge the skill between the teams, and you can see that the difference between teams is not that big. How does showbiz scale work? Showbiz scale works like this. There's a 1 and there's a 0. If you lose, you're a loser. You win, you're a winner. And believe it or not, this is it. There's no, close in skill here, etc. Show business likes this. This is not because they're villains or whatever, but because this is what gets people, who said that? That's what gets people going. This yes or no thing. This is done so that it accumulates interest. So in the view of show business, Spirit cannot be struggling or have but this is a very nuanced take already, that they have some issues, whatever. This doesn't get anything going. You gotta say, they're this or they're this, and more time you spend as this, the more interesting it is to call you this. This is it. There's nothing else to this. And if you try to take the show business scale and apply it to actual Dota, it doesn't work. It's meaningless. The best example I have right now is Ame goes to the finals of TI, loses, takes 2 games off of Falcons, loses last game. What do people say about him? Or like, how do people treat him? Who remembers what hero he played in the second game of TI? Who remembers what hero he played in the first game? In the third game, in the fourth game? Do you remember what hero he played? I remember he played Klinks, if I remember correctly. I think he played Sven as well, and maybe Ursa. But I don't remember that well. But everybody remembers he played the Juggernaut and he lost, therefore he's a loser. And if you were to kind of poll people who's better, Ami or Satanic, I think the majority of people are going to say Satanic is better. Even though Ami did beat Satanic, essentially, at TI, got to the finals and then didn't go to the finals. This is because this is meaningless. This is completely made up sort of, informational sort of thing. It's for fun. It's for engagement, etc. And you see it all the time. The team that gets second place at TI, trash. First place, gods. But then again, if they lose the next tournament, nobody cares. Like, you're no longer a god, etc. So all of this it's manufactured. It's manufactured to get this reaction out of you and get like the news going, etc. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a side of Dota. Believe me, if there's no show business in Dota, I played when there was no show business in Dota. We played qualifiers for like $10 gift card. And then you had like top players playing in those qualifiers. You couldn't even get into them because it was absurd. Like you would win like a mouse. So show business, is the revenue. There's no revenue outside of show business in Dota. Like the tournament payouts, etc. It's just, it wouldn't be there if this wasn't a show business oriented kind of in there, which very often clashes with the actual sports side of it. Now, why does this matter is primarily that even if you know this, like now I told you, and you might think, okay, well, since I know about it, I'm immune to it. Well, you're not. your brain doesn't work that way. Especially, you know, if you do consume like comments, you know, just from, you know, analytics or whatever, what would you call them, influencers, basically comments by influencers, you know, you might know that they're just hyping things up, they're making a case for something, whatever, but it would still affect you. It's very difficult to listen to this and not be affected by it, not to start thinking that way. It's the Nietzschean, you know, the gaze into the abyss, you know, like gaze into the abyss, I think. It will have an impact on you. I mean, of course, you have a choice of not reading this, not looking at this, but then you're going to be sort of playing your own game. You might just get lost on your own. And I kind of done that at some point, like when I didn't talk to anyone about Dota. And, you know, the result of it is most people just don't understand what it is that I'm saying. And because they don't understand what I'm saying about Dota, they just think I'm a noob. Like, I don't understand what I'm talking about. Because they don't recognize my name, you know, I don't have this presence. And you become basically sort of a social. And it's very difficult to build the, you know, the network, how to put it, basically it becomes difficult to work with people if you don't actually pay attention to what is happening in the media. So there's this problem that you have, that you need to sort of interact with the show business side of it, but not let it kind of affect you. And this is very difficult, both for players, etc. And just knowing about this, it makes it easier, but it doesn't save you just by knowing this. It doesn't save you. It has to be worked out in your head, what is real, what is not real. So I'm making this video about Team Spirit just because, like, in the media, I saw a lot of pushback against Team Spirit as if they're like really bad right now, which they are not. But at the same time, this kind of feedback loop that, you know, the guys are playing, you know, the team has structure, maybe they have, I don't know who makes decisions over there, but generally this public perception side can have an effect on players. They can, you know, can raise doubt, etc. So at the end of the day, you really just have to go and watch the games and see what is happening in the games, and then that should be a starting point. And believe it or not, if you watch Team Spirit games, they're not perfect. They kind of seem to be missing some key elements of this patch, but you can say that about every single team. There's no team that is really great right now, the way I see it. Maybe I didn't watch enough, but I just don't see teams that are just on a different level. What I see really is that, you know, this is like absolute worst team, this is like the best team, and then everybody in, you know, at this like tier 1 events, I don't think Blast is a tier 1 event because, you know, it's online, the group stage is kind of strange, and the playoffs are kind of strange, so I think it's like tier 1.5, but who cares. So all these teams they're kind of really close in skill. It's really not that easy to say where on this scale is like Team Yandex and where is like Mouse, you know, maybe they're here but they just got bad matchups or whatever. So it's difficult to say who is, you know, which team is better, etc., like long term especially. So at the end of the day, what you gotta do is listen to all of this, realize that nobody is really that special right now, everybody has problems, and go and, you know, pay attention to Dota. All right, so what can we see in Dota 2? Let's see. All right, so this is Team Spirit's game against Yandex. This is the first game, and well, the first thing that I want to look at is, you know, you can go back and watch the laning stage and find mistakes that they're making and improve it, you know, try to get them to fix some things, and maybe that's going to be enough to change everything. But I want to showcase you kind of like what it is that, how do you put this? What isn't happening? What what is on your screen if you're watching the stream, if you're listening to casters, but then that's not what is happening in the game. Okay, what's going on? Yeah, I have to restart the game because it lags. They did something to the replays that for some reason now when you rewind sometimes it lags. I didn't manage to figure out what it is. I think it happens roughly around here. So first of all, we're gonna just listen to the cast a little bit.
Spirit in terms of getting your Toro online.
Yeah, now I'm looking forward to see what Spirit do with this, considering the builds, right? Because you mentioned obviously the chance to we'll actually see a Dream Coil here and a pushback. Nice pull there from the Drinking Buddies, actually pulling him out with the spear, so he didn't get like forced through the Dream Coil. It probably cost Rue his life, but a very cute save there with the Drinking Buddies. Spirit, they're going to try and turn, look towards Watson. Yatoro charging forward, but he's still got to be careful. It's not easy to fight into them. The blink into the spear is going to be there. Yatoro's going to get sent back into the rest of the team and taken out. Chira Jr. gets the double kill, and they're trying to chase on for more at Yandex. Watson jumps in, Deadshot comes through for Zag, so that's Panto dead. Very nice team plays from Yandex, despite that very cute little save at the start with the Drinking Buddies. It didn't matter on Spirit's side. They still lose 3 heroes. That's going to open up the space for Yandex to step into the pit. This sort of...
Okay, so this is kind of example number 1. Great casting, by the way. Like, I really like OD Pixel, you know. And the game is interesting. Like, you're listening to OD Pixel and the game sounds interesting. Like, what is happening on your screen seems important. It seems like, oh, this is what is supposed to be happening, etc. But if we look at this from a different perspective, where... What happens? Kind of semi-safe from the spear, right? Why are they fighting in the first place? You know, this guy doesn't have BKB, this guy has, you know, no items. They're kind of controlling, trying to protect Roche, but in reality, they're just getting caught. This is a nonsensical fight in some reason. So he just goes to check the rune. The rune is bottom, and well, Team Spirit just kind of engage into this. Why do they engage into this? You know, like you will not get this from the cast. Like, does this make sense to engage here? I personally think that it doesn't seem like a good idea because you've already accomplished what you want to accomplish, and this theme is gonna come back. Actually, let's draw some more. Why not, right? So part of the thing that is happening right now is you have this strategy, I would say. So you have, let's say, this is the Roche pit. You know, like this is Roche is here somewhere, and this is the rune here. And so your fight is kind of in this territory around Roche pit. You know, there's like stairs here, there's stairs here, there's stairs here. Here, you kind of get the idea, right? So the way a lot of teams are positioning themselves right now is they try to control a portion of this field where you're fighting, and they have spells like Arena, like Muertas, Spirits. Some games you see Disruptor, some games you see like Viper. Like his thing, you see Largo just around him, you know, there's this kind of... So what they're doing is they have this piece of, like, they feel that they can control, like Dream Coil, you know, they have this AoE spells that control, like, a certain circle in this field of fighting. And if you cannot engage into this field of fighting, then what you really should be doing is force them to use these spells if you can. Like, they use Arena, right? They use the Coil. And then your job is, okay, let's use another color as well. Your job is to get out. So you go in, you force them to use this, you get out. Why? Because once they use these spells to control this portion of the team fight, and you move away, there's no way for them to really fight because they're controlling this, and they have to make a decision. Now, you know, it's up to them. Do they go back? Do they go into Roche? Do they chase you, etc.? But your general idea is you don't want to, you know, if you're green in this scenario, like it was Team Spirit, if you're green in this scenario, you don't want to fight in this yellow kind of territory. You want to get out and, you know, fight somewhere else, or not fight at all. Just use the map, because, well, it's just how the game is structured that you rarely have a hero that both has like macro mobility and territorial control. Underlord is kind of, you know, one of those heroes that has both, which is why he's quite strong right now. Kind of funny we don't see carry Underlord actually. But you get the idea. So there's a portion of the territory that one team has the means to control. In this case, it's, you know, Team Yandex. They kind of control this, and they want to stay here and control. So once you provoke them to start controlling this territory, you want to get out and reset the fight, do something, leave the fight, etc. And this is the meta. What I'm saying is, it's not how Team Yandex plays. This is part of the meta. If you get the Largo, if you get the Luna, if you get like a Seth, etc., Mars, who else? Like even Tidehunter. There a lot of heroes that have this, you know, idea behind them. Most of heals, most of supports that are like AA, for example, to some extent, they can't really roam around freely. They don't have this freedom to move around. You of course try to get not a one-dimensional draft where you just control part of the territory, but Dota is just structured in such a way that you don't get everything at once. So if you get this tactical control of territory, then you probably don't have that much mobility. Anyway, the general idea is that this is the way some teams play, this is the way some teams draft, and to counteract that, you just don't fight where they want to fight. Once they establish this control, you just don't want to fight there. And this is kind of the thing that Team Spirit are lacking, and it's not that hard to fix. Like, you just have to understand the general like principle of it. So you can see this is a kind of what happens, that, you know, they do get out, but it's hard to say why Yatora goes in here. To me, I mean, I'm seeing everything. It just seems pointless. But at the same time, I feel like he doesn't really understand the hero that well. So he's just kind of trying to figure it out. He doesn't really know if he's going to kill all of them, if it's going to be bad for them. Like, he simply does not understand what exactly is going to happen. Like, is he going to be able to get out, etc. Obviously, you know, when you look at this from the perspective of just general drafting, you will not be able to win these fights against Chen unless you're already destroying them in lanes. Because Chen, by default, is going to have like a couple of thousand gold more than your supports. I mean, if your supports are not farming supports. And Chen is one, you know, Chen and Enchantress are some of the best farming supports in the game. So generally, you cannot, like, once you evade them, you just don't go in against Chen. Because he has this ability to, you know, to reset, you know, extra creeps, you know, there's probably something pushing on the map at the same time as, you know, you're fighting. So against Chen, you generally, if you get out, then you're kind of happy. Because forcing Chen into a bad sort of part of the map where he doesn't really want to be, where his team doesn't want to be, you know, it's pretty good. So it's hard to explain why Yatora went in here, and I really mean that. Some people say, like, oh, he's just game ruining. I don't even know if they care about winning this game. Maybe they care more about, like, getting, like, understanding Kez. Maybe he cares more about understanding Kez. Maybe it was somebody else's goal to go in. Maybe there was a miscommunication. Maybe there was too much, you know, yelling. We don't know. But the thing is, it's not something that's wrong with Yatora or Team Spirit. It's just I need to check if audio works. Sorry. Yeah, it should work. So it's just part of the game. Like, they're kind of missing a thing here. And, well, unfortunately, he dies. You know, Tusker was already dead. They catch this guy, and they kind of lose Rosh as well. If Yatora doesn't go in here, they probably lose Rosh. But maybe they can, you know, troll them a little bit, you know, kind of force them not to get Rosh. Or maybe they can get more out of the map while, you know, these guys are trying to get Rosh carefully. Maybe, you know, Storm Spirit gets this rune, steals Aegis. Anyway, what happens next is, let's go back to this.
is just that little bit tighter today from Yandex in comparison to what Spirit's bringing.
I feel like Spirit's gotta go for a steal.
They're gonna try.
They're gonna try. Oh my god!
He's actually managed to help kill off Watson. Zip forward comes into play. The Roshan will fall down until get the Aegis.
What?
See what they can do it for round 2. I mean, they just have to bail out. Saxon's going for the TP away. I mean, it works out. Collapse comes charging in, gets the kill on Watson. They don't get the kill on Roast. That still goes the way of Yandex, but he gets the Aegis. He kills off Chira Jr. as well afterwards. I mean, you can't ask for much more there from the Primal.
It collapse. I swear, this guy steals more Aegises than anybody. This is just insane. This was also, by the way, this was rock throw. He rock through. I think he hit everyone with the rock and then comes charging through with the Drinking Buddies bonus. Explosive damage from him. I think, 5,000 damage he did. Oh, now he's caught.
He's going to get caught by the Spear. Pretty tanky on this Primal, so should be able to walk this one off. Yeah, he's able to get out and turns around, throws Rock back and hits all 3 of them. I mean, that's going to inspire sort of Ruin Yatoro to get in there and start looking for the kills. Chira Jr. is back in play, though, gets him with the Dream Coil. And Toro, he's caught by the Spear pushback. I mean, it was a nice rock throw into sort of Collapse walking away, being like, guys, what are you doing?
All right, so again, this just looks... I mean, I watched this a bunch of times, so for me it's a little bit different. But if you're just watching the stream, it kind of will look normal, what is happening. Like, the guy steals the Aegis, right? You know, what happens? So, again, Collapse gets caught, Kez runs in, doesn't really do anything because, well, it's just Kez against 5 heroes. Literally. There's nobody helping him. Like, this guy who kind of started the whole thing by checking the rune, just walks away, like, I'm not really doing anything because, you know, I don't have any HP. So he gets back. You can see he does a ridiculous amount of damage actually. So what is not mentioned here and what players should be looking at is just realizing, okay, well, yeah, if Collapse is in the fight, if he can be in the fight doing damage, because there's no pipe, you know, there's no pipe. There's not gonna be a pipe most likely. That's it. Like, Collapse can do damage. Collapse has to be in the fight. This is part of our win condition. Kez simply cannot possibly deal with all of these heroes because Chen, sorry, it's probably, yeah. Because Chen is not gonna let Kez burst everybody, you know, at least for the foreseeable future. So you already have to start structuring this idea of how it's gonna be. But when you're watching the stream, all you see is, you know, Collapse is doing, you know, great plays. Like, Storm kind of gets a little bit unlucky. I think he got bushed by... But together, you know, they get the Aegis, they kind of reset the whole thing, so it kind of all works out. But here's the real interesting thing. You can see that the casters, they're not saying anything because it's not their job. Why, you know, a bad caster, or like, let's put it this way, a caster that most people would not find it funny or interesting to listen to, would start thinking like I'm thinking, what are you doing on Primal Beast? If I was a caster in this game, I would be saying, Collapse, where the fuck are you going, man? What are you doing? What is this rock throw? Okay, you want to find Chen? You want to finish him off? Alright, maybe you will do that. But why are you going into this territory? As Stini calls it, why are you going into this Brazil territory? Are you really trying to abuse the fact that there's no arena, you know, there's no 2 heroes? But how are you going to do this? Go farm. We just realized here that we need you to be big, you know, like, we need you to be big. You're not creating any space, you're not farming, you're just wasting time. Okay, you checked, there's nobody there, you know, they're not dying. Partially, probably because they have vision somewhere around here, because they were trying to do Roche. So, my mind goes, like, what are you doing, man? Alright, are you spacing for Kez? I mean, he doesn't really need spacing right now, like, they have 2 cores dead. We need you to be big, we need you to have this. And now he's seemingly kind of, okay, they're responding, we should get out. I guess not, he's going to farm this. And what it does is, it creates this tension point here. Because I personally, I don't know what Collapse is doing. Maybe he's doing some genius kind of gameplay, in some sense that he's forcing enemies to come here, where they see him, try to kill him, maybe he gets out, maybe he dies, but he creates so much space because the enemy team gets stuck here when there's no Roche, and they are all here, like, farming all this. So he's spacing for Kez, right? I mean, that's the logical explanation of what he's doing. He's just spacing for Kez. But again, from watching the stream, watching the, listen to the casters, you will never start even thinking about this. And there's nothing wrong with what they're doing, kind of, if that's the plan, that they're just forcing enemies into bad spot on the map. But then again, Yatoro, he comes in, and there's pretty nice rock throw, and it kind of looks like, well, maybe it will work, but it will not work, because again, this guy lost all of his HP, and Yatoro is fighting again, alone. And, Storm Spirit just respawned, he's not gonna be there, Shadow Shaman is not gonna be there, and you're right on their towers. So again, you can say, okay, Yatoro is throwing this game. But realistically, there's just some kind of miscommunication. Someone is misunderstanding something. Maybe it's Yatoro getting baited to go fight here. Maybe it's Collapse forcing him to come here. Maybe Collapse saying, like, let's kill all of them. It's time for us to kill all of them, It's good, we're stronger, whatever. We don't know. Maybe it's Tusk who's forcing them. Maybe they just don't care. We don't know. But this is just a mistake that can be fixed in 5 seconds, literally. Once you kind of see how you're going to win this game, once you have the clear objective, how you're going to win this game, none of this happens. But the difference between, like, the show business side is just going to talk about how Yatoro, runs in and dies. And that's, in some sense, that's true, but you really need to go and look at why that happened. And well, part of the reason why that might be happening is because they don't have a coach. But then again, you really think that these players cannot really figure it out? Like, there's something so fundamentally wrong with these players that they cannot figure out that dying here near these two tier 2 towers is bad? I mean, there's zero chance that Yatoro will not understand this. Like, there's zero chance that he's gonna watch this replay and say, no, I think this is the best play I can make here. Yeah, this is definitely very good. There's zero chance. So there's really nothing wrong with them. It's just some misunderstanding of the meta, of their game plan. Maybe there's just too much spam on the, on Discord, like in the voice chat. We don't really know what it is. But so far, what we're saying is the same exact mistake. And, well, you might think, okay, well, that means that they're bad. No, it means that they're missing a piece of the puzzle. That's it. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It doesn't mean that they have to fix some crazy thing. Most likely they're just missing kind of one part of what is going on, and it could even be that they're not even missing it, they're just testing things, trying things, figuring things out, etc. Okay, another example of kind of the same thing, but because of this, because they went here, they lost almost 5,000 gold, because it's Tormentor, etc. So it was just honestly, these mistakes, to me, from my experience, they look like either testing things, trying to figure things out, or kind of getting lost in the in the game a little bit, because there's just too much going on in Discord or in your head or whatever. Anyway, that was economically, they kind of got economically destroyed. Now, if we watch Collapse gameplay, Yandex are doing an interesting thing. They're actually dodging everything. If you watch Collapse, or anyone from Team, excuse me, anyone from Team Spirit, what is happening is you barely see Yandex on the map, even though they're winning. And that's by design. They simply understand they have Chen, they have this like out farming potential on their supports. Tusker doesn't really farm. Shadow Demon in some games farms, but when you go this build, you don't really farm. So they kind of just know that if they play this game, Chen is going to be big. It's going to be very difficult for Spirit to play, and then Puck is going to shine at some point against Storm Spirit, maybe, or whatever. So Yandex are kind of playing in an interesting way. They're not pressing their advantage. They're just like looking, I guess they are looking to reach this threshold when they feel like they're strong enough to just win, and then they're going to make their move. So for now, they're farming. And to Spirit's credit, they're doing fine. They're, fighting some aggressive spots, like Collapse is not overreacting. So they definitely seem like they're in control of, what's going on in the game. They're getting some kills on the map. This guy is farming aggressively, kind of not scared. They're all farming. All of their cores have like decent, like if you look at the advantage, it really is just Chen. You know, it's the two supports are the ones who generate this 6k gold advantage. So realistically, Spirit, even after making like kind of really serious mistakes, and it's like Yandex didn't force them to make those mistakes. It's not like Yandex outplayed them. It's their own doing. So that suggests that, you know, they're at least, you know, not much worse than Yandex, if they're worse than Yandex at all. As you can see, nothing is really happening. It's not like Team Spirit are being overrun. Even though they made these mistakes, they can recover and doing their thing. You know, they're not getting destroyed. They're definitely playing on the same level as Yandex, at least this game. Kind of grouping up a little bit. Okay, so this is an interesting situation, and we can I think just listen to the broadcast again.
For them to make that next hit.
Because now, if they can get kind of the spear arena set up into the Ursa, they should be able to kill most of them. Obviously, the saves are still something you have to factor in.
But one lucky bash could just net you a kill or net you a stopping of a TP or stopping of something, right? Like, so.
Yes, and obviously the blood sport facet aspect to the arena is going to give them a bit of a solution.
Grab.
See, notice, he's going to try for the setup. He's going to catch Yatoro in here. Yatoro, has he got any way out of this one? Defensive disruption will come out. He's gone. Now them turn towards Rue, get themselves a second and see if they can maybe turn into more as they'll chase down Panto. Notice, gets the angle to push him back with the spear, and off to the side, Watson, he wants more. He's actually able to get the jump on a collapse as well. So whilst the rest of the team deal with Panto, Watson makes sure he's got his sight set for collapse and ensures that they don't just get the 3 kills.
You know, what just happened? If you watch the stream, the casters are not even excited because they can see the gold differential and they just think, okay, well, Team Spirit is going to get overrun, like it's kind of game over, you know, Yandex are just way stronger. But reality is different. Reality is very different. So, Ru comes in, he puts the wards down, they see Muerta, so they know this puck is not just alone, they know it for a fact. They don't see anyone else anywhere. I think they see Mars briefly here. So, they know this is going to be a fight. They know this is going to be a fight. And Collapse jumps onto Buck. This is not Yandex. Honestly, Yandex played this situation kind of terribly, I would say. Because this bait was so, I don't know, it was incredibly obvious. Again, it's on Team Spirit that they take the bait. I mean, they're not taking this bait because they're silly, stupid, or whatever. They're just taking this bait because they're thinking something that, well, probably is incorrect, right? And again, you have the same situation. Yatoro goes in after Collapse initiation, and Collapse is not in the fight. Why is he not in the fight? Well, because he used Trample to kill the creeps, and now his Trample is on cooldown. It's 21-second cooldown, yet he goes in. Very simple. Again, very simple. Who's going to do the damage? I mean, Kez without BKB is not ready yet. So you, especially into Chen as we discussed. And you need Collapse to do the damage. You need Collapse to BKB and do the damage. Needs to get Aegis, etc. So what is the reality? They're just not ready. They don't really understand where the damage is going to come from their heroes. They simply don't have a win condition in their mind. So they're just trying to play this. Why do they not have a win condition? Again, we were not part of the Discord conversation, the drafting conversation. Maybe it's because they are, you know, not used to playing with Kaz. Maybe they're trying things. Maybe it's Mirel, like, has a different idea of how to play. Maybe it's, you know, Collapse Colin for whatever. He woke up horny that day and he's just like, I'm gonna kill all of them. We don't know. But the reality is, they're not actually bad or in trouble or whatever. There's just small, again, it's the same piece of the puzzle. It's the same scenario 3rd time in a row. It's the same exact mistake 3 times in a row. And believe it or not, if you fix it once, you make all of these plays go away. They lose the fight completely. Again, Collapse has not contributed anything. You know, nobody really contributed anything to the fight. And of course, it's going to look bad. It's going to look like they have no clue what they're doing. But that is not because they don't have any clue what they're doing. They just have a misconception of how to fight into this lineup. Maybe Chen just counters them too hard. Maybe they don't respect Yandex. Again, I have a lot of these maybes that simply explain that there's no such thing as spirit equals bad. This is just show business take. From the Dota perspective, they're just making mistakes that are easy to fix. They're not that hard to, see and realize and, fix. From that point on, it just becomes way too difficult to play. There's, Aegis, there's too much gold, and, it's hard. Now they have their BKBs, but, fighting now is just incredibly difficult. Simply because of gold. It's just like, at some point, gold just becomes too much, and now Kes doesn't have this parity, so he cannot really do anything, and then, this sort of strategy of controlling part of the field where you fight and having heals and etc. etc. There isn't that much tower damage on the side of Yandex, but with this much gold, there's gonna be enough. There's just gonna be enough. So, what are the different things that Spirit could fix fast? The way I see it is, let's get back to our thing. So the way I see it, it's really there's this meta of territory. We are fighting here, and like we control this part of the fight. We're controlling this territory. So what Spirit really need to realize is how to position around this territory, when to go in, and when to get out. Like that's kind of their goal, to understand this. If they want to play this style with saves, with quick initiations, etc. For this, they need to look at the item builds, because there is, for example, for Storm Spirit, Sumail has a build with, it's not just Sumail, Nisha also played it with Eternal Shroud. That item has very high win rate on Primal Beast as well, and it's the type of item that can allow you to do certain things. Sumail played 2 games with Eternal Shroud, Nisha played 1. The item seems like kind of getting into the meta. Perhaps there has to be more focus on split push for Spirit. So maybe a bit less saves, more something is happening on the map while their enemy is, positioning here somewhere else on the map, something is pushing. Like maybe there's a Weaver +4, maybe you yourself pick like Enchantress. I think Panta plays Enchantress. So something else is happening on the map. Maybe somebody, like, there's some Travels play, Invoker, whatever. So maybe this is a good idea. The general thing to understand is how to fight into this formation, how to not lose these fights. But once you realize that you have, like, your initiation is no longer initiate and then you fight, so it's like one step. Step one, initiate and then fight. What really is happening is they have to think about, like, step 1, Collapse goes in, step 2, Collapse gets saved, for example, step 3, we kind of step back so that they chase us and get out of their, comfortable positioning. Step 4, we counter initiate, whatever. So they need kind of this plan, and to have this plan, you really just need to formulate the win condition. So the end result is, this follows from win condition. Just understanding what is stronger for you. In this case, it was mostly saves, and later on, like, overwhelming damage. So once, the heals are not as strong, once the damage kind of ramps up for Radiant. So their win condition is like 40-minute game with good farm on cores, and, you have to counter initiate a little bit with, like, save from, Mars Arena, or maybe insta-burst somebody, whatever. But once you have this simple win condition, constructing these steps is easy, and it stops being this. Now, you might think, oh, this is a lot. Like, there's a lot to think about, etc. For Team Spirit, it's nothing. It can be done in like a couple of hours. Well, maybe in a day. So, basically, you know, at the end of the day, are they in trouble? Well, they're not. That's it. It's quite easy to get out of the issues they have. I'll show you one more thing. This is from their game against, it's also with Kez. This is against their game, this is from a game against Aurora in Fisher Universe 8. No, I almost forgot to switch the... Haha, you didn't get me. OBS. Okay, we're gonna skip basically to the end. This game is quite a bit longer. This time they're playing with Mars. They're playing with Mars, they're playing with AA, so AA is kind of was the idea that AA is the way for them to break this formation of counter execution threshold, where, you know, AA puts the blast on somebody and they can just burst him. It doesn't really matter that there's Largo who's trying to save him, etc. The problem with AA, though, is it still has to be used in an intelligent way. Just bursting one core no longer works, especially when, you know, your farm priority is kind of, you're behind on farm. So what are they doing here? You can see it's very similar initiation. They just initiate onto a core. He has an Aegis, right? And look at what they're doing. They are simply playing this like positioning, focusing on one core. There is no such thing as, you know, Puck has linkage. He's not looking for supports. He's not looking to disrupt like Viper. They're not backing away, like trying to dodge the fight, because they already used the arena, you know, like there's not going to be Spear arena for the second. He has BKB as well. So this is already kind of questionable in today's meta. What they're banking on is that AA is just gonna, you know, it's gonna be a miracle. That AA is just gonna just kill everybody. But really what happens is Mars doesn't BKB because he's trying to, you know, play a longer fight. Windranger responds. Everything goes into Windranger. You know, Tusk saves Mars. Everything goes into Windranger. AA used his ult simple on Windranger. They're chasing her. Because, you know, AA ult, when she has BKB on, you know, yeah, you're gonna probably kill her if you all focus on her. But then you simply cannot fight in this territory. As you can see, Viper is controlling this. Largo is kind of, you know, he creates the territory against him. Part of the reason why he's good. There are wards here, so you just cannot fight in this situation. And this is the same problem that they had in the game we just watched. So realistically, this is the same concept. It's more or less one concept there is right now for them to understand. And once they fix that, it's pretty, you know, suddenly, basically just by fixing this, they might just look like geniuses, you know, overnight. They can become Dota geniuses. Literally, if what they do, you know, in a situation like this, they go on to Windranger, they kill her, and then run away. Like, instantly, they just run away from here, right? If they can get out. They might just... Or how to put this? If they can manage to do this, it might just become impossible to play against them. Yeah, so realistically, I think they're kind of still figuring things out. So the only real problem that they might have is that they themselves will believe this idea that there's something wrong with what they're doing and over adjust, meaning that, you know, they need to correct some mistakes, but they don't really need to revamp everything. They do need to rethink their whole strategy or like the whole way they're playing, etc. They just have to start small, just fix this kind of approach to teamfights. And then from that, it will be much easier to kind of see, you know, what level they can actually play on. Because again, if we go back to the results are fine. Their results are completely fine. At least on the surface, they're doing fine. from the perspective of Dota, they're doing fine. That's it. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something new, and guess I'll see you in the next one. GG everybody. Good games.